Got the old barn door here that doesn't have a way to stop it. You know, it's extra functional. Okay, there we go.
What a disaster. All right, so if you're one of the home buyers that fell for something like that without a home inspection, whatever the case is with this video, the lesson to learn here is that homes are expensive and this stuff is real. So we serve about 9 major markets in the Maryland area, and home prices are dropping. Sellers are not happy about it, but it is happening. The problem that I'm seeing is that there are affordable houses in the county in that $250,000 range, but they're in really bad shape. So I don't know what these sellers are thinking or what the agents are thinking by even taking these listings, but what we're seeing is that houses that need complete rehabs are priced just under where they should be when they're move-in ready.
We got the easy flow sash cord here and the easy to service pocket doors up on this side. The little spring right there. We got the loose mantle that was glued on top of styrofoam blocks that were glued onto the wood here. Quality A+ for effort. Next up, we got the transition strip that's not attached to anything here. Okay. We got the glue down carpet squares. Okay, let's go, boys. You got the properly sized opening for this pocket door here. And there's no little spacer sliders on the bottom. Okay. We got the painted shut windows in the primary bedroom. Oh, easy egress here. Nice. No flip would be complete without the bathroom mirrors hung over an operable window. All-time classic here. The old book covering the toilet there, but it's a bunch of pictures of, I don't know, bridges and stuff. Okay.
I'm just kind of curious, is this a real estate agent that's going through his listing that he's about to put on the market that he can't believe what he's seeing, but he took it anyway? Or is this somebody that is just checking out the house? I mean, maybe made it an appointment and is walking through and capturing all this stuff. Clearly, maybe it's their own house, but clearly it can't be somebody that bought this house unless they got a really good deal. And I'm talking about a super good deal. This is just sloppiness at the epitome of sloppiness. But yeah, this is the kind of crap that I'm talking about that I'm seeing that is ridiculously overpriced.
We got the art piece shelf here that's not attached to.
It looks like a bedpan.
Got the beautiful new IKEA kitchen with the up countertop here. Oh my God.
By the way, and I'm glad, so this is, I wouldn't even call this a real butcher block countertop, but I did look at a rehab earlier this morning here in Maryland where they had put in butcher block countertops. Butcher block is trash. I used to do that with rentals. Like back in the day, I thought it'd be a really cool idea. And nobody takes care of them right. And I don't even know the junk and the glue that holds them together. They separate. The counters are trash. And I would not buy a whole kitchen. I could see having like an island with a butcher block or like a butcher block section. But yeah, not good.
You got the sexy vent that is not connected to anything. Good job staging. You got the fancy fridge with no water line going to it, all right? We got the old barn door here that doesn't have a way to stop it. You know, it's extra functional. Okay, there we go.
Oh, man. And this is all in the same house?
Together. We got the stream running through the basement here. Nice. You got the abandoned drain line here with no cap on it, and it was just covered up with this carpet that's here. Yowza! The icing on the cake, we got the vent for the new shower that probably used to be attached to this, that should have been attached to go out through the roof.
What a
Yay,
disaster.
hookers.
No insulation. That's obviously in the attic. All right, so if you're one of the home buyers that fell for something like that without a home inspection, maybe that's what happened here, and you're discovering all of it. I mean, how would you know to pull the carpet back, to find the old drain? I don't know. Whatever the case is with this video, I think it's a good lesson to learn that, A, you need a home inspection by a really good inspector, not somebody that just passed the minimal course. But I think the lesson to learn here is that homes are expensive and this stuff is real.
When we bought our house, we were scammed by a flipping company. Here's the full story. We bought our house 5 years ago. I was 24. I didn't know anything about houses, and our real estate agent was brand new. We bought our house from a flipping company. They had owned it about 6 months. They bought it from an elderly couple, and they did a ton of renovations. They covered up a ton of stuff, and they lied about a ton of stuff. But the biggest thing was our garage. We have a detached garage, and we found out later that anytime it would rain, it would flood due to the landscaping. When we did our first walkthrough of the house, we never even saw the garage because they didn't have the key, and so we couldn't go in there.
All right, lots of red flags here. Brand new real estate agent. If you take my Todd Simple home buying course, you're going to learn, especially if you're a first-time buyer, never to hire a new agent, especially somebody that doesn't own a home themselves. Why would you buy a house without looking in the garage because they didn't have a key? But, grading issues are a big problem. And I tell people all the time, try and look at the pictures online. Sometimes they don't really tell a good story. But if it looks like the grades are coming towards the house, it's usually not a good sign. And grading and doing any type of retaining walls to get the grade going the opposite direction is very expensive work. It could cost tens of thousands of dollars in grading and landscaping to prevent that from happening. But you should be paying attention to it. When you're walking around the outside of the house, which is something I like to do first, especially if I'm there early, I want to see, does it look okay? Is the house vacant? Does it look like there was forced entry? But while I'm doing that, before I go inside, I'm looking at the foundation areas. I'm looking at patio areas. I'm looking at the grades because I want to see how does the rainwater flow. Because basements, if you're in a state where these are a thing, a lot of them leak. And most of it is just groundwater problems. Either the downspouts dump out too close to the foundation, they needed extensions on them, or when it rains, the neighboring properties grade into your yard and it ultimately ends up around the foundation. So water is a problem dealing with that. And yeah.
Inspector inspected the house, did not find anything wrong with the garage or the kitchen or the air conditioning. That's another story. The day that we moved in, we finally got to go in the garage and we noticed that there had been fresh drywall put up along the entire walls. And I know that it was fresh because number one, it wasn't mudded or taped. And number two, the very first time that it rained, the drywall got wet. It sucked up water. So we immediately took the drywall down. That's when we noticed the sill plates were rotted and completely gone in some places. The studs were literally hanging, not even connected to the ground in some places.
So a home inspector should have found this moisture issue. I mean, a lot of people want to cancel home inspections because it's raining, or they don't want to go, you make an appointment with me, for instance, to go look at houses, and then it's raining outside, and they call up and say, hey, maybe we should do this another day when it's not raining. And I love looking at houses in the rain. I think that's the best time to look at a house if you're fortunate enough to get a rain day. But water penetration, a lot of it, you can't just get rid of the moisture that's in either the studs or concrete, the foundation. So a lot of inspectors have these moisture readers where they can actually, through infrared, read through moisture behind the drywall. So having the right home inspector and interviewing them and asking a lot of questions is something that you should be doing before your home inspection. Make sure you have the right company. But yeah, this is a disaster so far.
We reached out to a realtor who contacted the seller, and they claimed that they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, and of course they didn't know anything about it. I sold a house a couple of years ago, and the garage was detached, and the garage leaked in heavy rains. Well, the house leaked too, but only in really, really heavy rains. And it just so happened that after my client bought the house, we had a heavy rain. But if a seller has lived in the house for 10 or 15 years, which was clearly the case when my client bought the house, you've had heavy rains before, and you would know if you had a water problem. It doesn't mean that you can't sell the house. If you're a seller, tell the people, hey, in heavy rains, based on this, this, and this, the basement will flood or the garage floods out. No big deal if you disclose it ahead of time. Here's some of the things that I do if they're calling for heavy rains. Give them the heads up. Chances are the people will still buy the house anyway. I mean, my gosh, I sold a house where the pool house was half on the neighbor's property, and the neighbor could have made them rip it down. But buyers bought it anyway because it was disclosed, and they were okay with it, risking that somebody would buy the neighbor's house next door and make them tear down the pool house that had been there for 10 or 15 years. So they were willing to gamble it. So chances are, if you disclose the issue, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you won't have pissed off buyers like this. But the other thing is, did this agent know this home inspector? And here's where I have a lot of problems with agents and their relationships. Not always does this turn out badly, but if you have an agent that is recommending a home inspector, and I'm not suggesting that they're getting kickbacks or, $100 bills slid under the, underhandedly to the agent for getting them hired. But an agent's not going to constantly call a deal killer, somebody that really finds out a lot of stuff about the house. And really, an inspector shouldn't be a deal killer anyway. What they should be doing is exposing problems with the property so that the buyer goes into it with eyes wide open. It's not necessarily killing the deal. Now, the buyer would have to decide whether it's a deal killer or not, but the home inspector's job should be able to say, hey, look, obviously they have a water leak here. So when you buy this house, you will need to hire somebody to do some waterproofing. Okay, well, they got a water issue. It doesn't mean that the buyer's not going to buy it. They should be running away, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen, that they don't buy it anyway. But a good home inspector should be taking this buyer around with them while they're looking at the house. But they don't even do that anymore, which really pisses me off. In the old days, prior to 2020, you can put the dates together, when people really started ducking out on their responsibilities, a home inspection was a learning experience for a buyer. It wasn't just to expose and to identify issues that could happen down the road, but maybe more immediate issues where you would need to budget or save money quicker for certain things and have some time for further repairs, like a roof. Maybe you're in the last 10 years of the roof's life, so an inspector would say, look, or you're in the last 10 years of the roof's life, so you may want to start saving money for that. Doesn't mean that they don't buy the house. But the inspectors used to take the buyer with them around the property and identify, like, oh, okay, look at this and what I'm looking at here. And when you're, here's where you're going to do this and do that, or here's what you should look out for. Now they don't want to be followed around by the buyer or the agent. They just want to go and do their thing and do a 20-minute recap or 15-minute recap on everything of what they found. If you're buying a house, you find an inspector that doesn't mind you hanging around while they're looking at your house, inspecting the house that you're looking to buy. You find somebody say, hey, look, I want to follow you around. I want to learn things. Are you cool with that? If they're not, find another inspector. And if your agent is looking for a way to duck out and not go to the home inspection, fire them. In my opinion, agents, what do you do? I mean, you make a decent wage. If you're running a legitimate and professional business, why wouldn't you want to be there with your buyer? They say, well, I don't want the liability because if I hear things, if I blah, 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 it's crap, right? If you're an agent and you want to duck out the responsibility of going to a 2-hour, 3-hour home inspection, have that conversation with your broker.
About it. Even though they obviously had covered it up with drywall, they looked at the disclosure forms and they had not disclosed any of the damage. And since they'd owned the house less than 2 years, technically you don't have to disclose it if you didn't notice it. Obviously, they noticed it because they covered it up. We contacted a real estate attorney who told us that while we probably did have a case, it would end up costing more money to sue than it would be to just fix it.
That's the issue. So that's why you need to take my course, guys. And you need to go into these transactions eyes wide open. You shouldn't be getting in your car and driving until you take Todd's Simple Home Buying course. It'd be the best $300 that you spend. And besides that, I'm not just trying to save you a lot of hassle and aggravation and prevent stuff like this, but what's the first check to an attorney going to cost? $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. You probably, in your contract too, you can't even just sue somebody without going through some type of mediation process. I know in a lot of the contracts that I look at, it says that you will mediate before you litigate, essentially, in your contract. So there's that. But trying to A, prove things, and B, sue somebody in the court systems, it's timely, it's negative, it's expensive. Just avoid the situation. Have a team around you that is professional. Do your own research. If you don't want a buyer's agent because you might hire somebody like this who clearly did not help this home buyer, and even if the story was made up, this really happens.
And he would recommend that we just didn't sue. Looking back, I
don't believe it's made up.
But it's been 5 years now, so it's too late. The nice thing I can tell you is that the flipping company never flipped another house after us.
The main thing that she could tell you is listen to me and my story like you should be asking your peers that bought houses in the last several years with no home inspections. At least she had one.
You got to see this. You can't make this type of stuff up. I mean, you just have to see it to believe it. So we've got extension cords feeding through the wall to over to here. Then we jumper them over to here. Then we jumper that one up to here. Then we feed that to this light and then run a line through to feed to this light, which isn't operational, by the way. But check this out. We ran screws right through
come on.
the surge protector. Do you know what's behind there? Wires. Wires, that's what's in there. And you ran screws right through that sucker. Are we trying to burn this freaking house to the ground or what? You cannot make this up.
Yeah, well, hopefully the breaker would blow. And houses today, there's a lot of arc fault breakers too, especially newer houses or when they've done renovations. The county will probably make them put an arc fault, which are great. Some people end up taking them out. They'll put them in to get a project done or whatever, to go through the permitting process, and they take them out. Safety precautions. I don't know why they would do that, but they do. And because they blow too much. Well, obviously, if the breaker's blowing, there's a problem. But people really do some great ingenuity with extension cords. I mean, it's amazing the things that I see, especially in like attics and crawl spaces and basements and things like that. But I mean, you could really just have an electrician come. Electricians are not that expensive. You can add additional outlets, or you have stuff like this.
The worst home to buy is a flipped home. I don't always agree. I think it depends, and there's nuance like everything in life. My biggest advice to home buyers, if you're going to buy a property that was recently flipped, only do so if that builder or flipper pulled a building permit. The reason I say that is if they pulled a building permit, it means that this property was inspected along the way. Electrical, plumbing, insulation, all of it.
Okay, so I want to say a couple things about this. Number one, First, you have to find out what renovations were done to determine if permits were even required, because a lot of flippers will go in and look for things that don't need extensive repairs. And in one county in particular that I can think of, you didn't even need a permit. I had a plumber that was pulling a permit to replumb a kitchen sink. A new kitchen was being installed with cabinets and countertop and stuff like that. Plumbing, I mean, obviously you're replacing the base cabinet, you're tearing out the sink and garbage disposal, and you have a dishwasher, and typically you would need a permit to do stuff like that. But in this county, they said, nope, it's not necessary. So one, you have to understand what you're buying, where you're buying it, and what's been done. The other thing is that just because permits were pulled doesn't mean that the inspection means that the quality of the work was done properly. So I know the story of a flipper in Baltimore City, and they're really sticklers for permits and shutting jobs down and putting $1,000 fines, stop work orders, and things like that. But this flipper had done this renovation, beautiful renovation, didn't pull one permit. And the only thing that he didn't, I think, replace in the entire house was the service cable that came down from Baltimore Gas and Electric, where they powered up the meter. And when the home inspection was taking place, not much was on the report. It looked like a really nice job, but they said that the service cable was cracked, where they were recommending that because of the age, they didn't replace that be replaced. So the flipper decided, hey, you know what? We'll replace that. It's not a problem. Doing a good job, said it has to be done by a licensed electrician. They hired a licensed electrician. They pulled the permits. Inspector came out to inspect the job. You have to inspect a new line before BG&E, Baltimore Gas and Electric, would connect to it. And when the inspector was out, he was looking around and he said, hey, it looks like a new siding, new windows, new everything. And in Baltimore City, you need it for drywall permit. And so he went back and looked on his computer in his car, came back, flagged the job, gave him a $1,000 fine, and killed the deal.
All of it was inspected by the town and signed off on. You can actually get a copy of the permit or the certificate of occupancy that was issued by the town, meaning all the work was done according to code. I often do not recommend to homeowners to buy a property that was flipped without a building permit. Of course, a lot of home flippers out there do bad work and they're just trying to make a quick buck. However, home flippers and real estate developers, when they pull a permit, there's somebody double checking the work. They're held to a higher standard.
I have seen home inspectors, building inspectors that have relationships with guys, hand them the sticker and just say, yeah, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, whatever, but here's your sticker, you passed. Just do this or do that. I've also seen them not even inspect the entire project that they're supposed to be looking at. Therefore, and to this point, that's why we always recommend in new home construction is that you always, when buying new construction, get an independent home inspector, a third party not connected to their quality control guy at the home building company or that county inspector, because a lot of people are lazy and they don't do their job. And that goes for inspectors, some inspectors as well.
Many of my clients are excellent home flippers. We require them to pull permits on
Sounds like a real estate agent.
their projects. And you know what the end result is? Their properties sell quickly to a bunch of happy homeowners. So yes, a flipped house can be a bad purchase if a permit wasn't pulled because you can't verify the work.
Yeah. Again, I'm not saying that this guy, there's anything wrong with what he's saying, other than that doesn't necessarily guarantee you a good job. It's not going to protect you against water in the basement. If the grading isn't right, the county or the municipality or the whatever he referred it to was borough, township. Well, I don't know what he said, but they're not going to come out and say, oh, well, it looks like water could leak into this house. So for your protection, get a home inspection.
This house right here is the reason I hate flipping houses. I've owned this house for over a year now. I've dropped the price $150,000 thus far. My mortgage is $4,000. So every day that I don't sell this house is another $150 out of my pocket.
I can't wait. But before we go dive into his story, and by the way, I don't preview these stories. My team pulls the videos for me to watch and react while I'm talking with you. I've never seen these videos before. But the first thing that comes to mind is this happens a lot. People buy a flipped house and they think they have a brand new house. If the house was built in 1947, but it's been flipped or renovated, you have a 1947 house that's been flipped or renovated.
If this house doesn't sell soon, I'm going to be cooked.
And this guy, obviously, watched HGTV or he bought somebody's course and thought it would be easy to do, easy to flip. I've never taken a house apart that I haven't found problems with that I wasn't expecting. If you are going to flip houses, and do it the right way. I've flipped houses, I do it the right way. But if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that you have enough cushion in there. And that's a price shock to today's sellers. I'm going through right now, I mentioned in one of my videos, I'm actively looking for a house to renovate and flip so that I could take you along with my journey. Not all flippers are bad. Not all of them are lipstick on a pig. But I can tell you that people do expect that they're buying a new house and they're not. So you're still dealing with, if it's a 1947 house, like I mentioned previously, the foundation's from 1947. And so are a lot of the other systems. I mean, unless you bulldoze it and start from scratch. But my point is that through looking recently at houses, I'm just kind of watching, just like many of you are that are buyers out there. I'm looking at the houses that I'm interested in. I'm making sure I like the neighborhood, what their houses look like, that they're in good condition. I don't see distress that's going to make it hard for me to sell my house when mine looks beautiful. I want the ugliest house on the block. I want people to be happy when I buy it and say, thank God somebody bought this house. They're going to fix it up. Because it's been an eyesore in the neighborhood. But the sellers, like I opened with in this video, the sellers are very unrealistic on what they want. I just looked at a HUD-owned property that it's open to bidders, all bidders right now, and they want a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, come on, are you stupid? Who's looking at these saying somebody's going to move into this house? No, you have to make it beneficial for a real estate investor, a good one, that's going to do things the right way. The reason why the lipstick on the pig is because these flippers can't buy it for the price they need to do a good job, or they're stuck like that poor guy to where he's getting eaten alive by hard money lenders, and his profits are gone. Now it's costing him every single month because he didn't know what he was doing. But I'm looking at these properties and I'm going, okay, this is priced at $464. It needs to be $300,000 or $285. Now, that isn't going to work. You can't just insult the seller. You can insult the seller, and you should. The agents they don't care. They just want the listing, and they'll just beat them down and say, oh, well, we need to drop the price, until they lose it and they look bad because they lost listings. But the agent should be saying, look, nobody's going to buy your house. You need to get down on a price. This house is a complete renovation. You have to watch the property so that you see the price declines. Now, in our own MLS, which is Bright MLS, they disabled a feature that I used to use all the time. It's stupid. I don't know why they did it. But I used to be able to click on a button that said watch, and I could get alerts anytime anything happened with that. Now I have to go to Zillow and save the property. I got to log into Zillow, save the property. Can't even use my own realtor-owned multiple listing service for these types of functionality. I have to go to Zillow, and I have to watch that property, and then I get alerts on them as they're doing price reductions. And I'm going to watch it because a $150,000 price reduction, I may not get the seller to bite for that. But if I can get them to drop $100,000, maybe I can get them to drop another $50K after they realize 6 or 9 months or a year from now that their house still hasn't sold.
5 responds, a bad business model or a Ponzi scheme? That's what several people who invested money with a popular Chicago home flipping business are asking themselves tonight.
The owners of iFlip Chicago are accused in lawsuits of luring inexperienced investors into predatory loans, leading to financially devastating consequences for dozens of Chicago families. PJ Rendawa unravels how things went wrong.
if you're interested in actually learning how to flip homes.
In late 2020, Amira Hadid signed up for a home flipping boot camp offered by real estate company iFlip Chicago.
iFlip Chicago boot camps is 100% hands-on.
This is something that my mom always wanted to do, and I'm a fan of HGTV.
Yeah, and it's your own cousin.
Yeah, and who can't trust family?
My name is Ramo Bay, and it's my wife,
Michelle Bay. That's Amira's cousin, Michelle Bay. She and her husband, Ramo Bay, run iFlip Chicago. In addition to boot camps, the company offers joint venture partnerships to first-time investors who want to flip a home.
There were a lot of people who had successfully done flips with him.
Tatiana Barnett.
All right, so let's talk first about when HGTV started to really come about. So after World War II, in the 1940s, a lot of America's housing was constructed. People lived in the cities, in multiple-use buildings. Maybe businesses were on the first floor. They lived in apartments. But people really started to take on homeownership after World War II. By the time we got to the 1960s and 70s, a lot of this inventory needed to be remodeled and renovated. And magazines started to really showcase new products. I mean, things were coming on, right? Microwave oven, for instance. A lot of new innovations were happening where people wanted them in their homes. So this started a lot of the renovation process of a lot of these houses that were built in the 1930s and 40s. Well, by the time we got to the mid-'80s, where magazines had really, they were selling so many ads for handyman and home renovation companies and products that you could now be putting in your house, that they started to create these television shows, these HGTV shows. And a lot of this really accelerated as the desire to want to renovate a house. It really started to accelerate the business or the need for the business of flipping houses. And now you hear when other people get in it, I always have this saying that says when you get out of your game and get into somebody else's game, you become fair game. And it looks like here, some people have taken it too far.
Both she and Amira say after the boot camp, they were recruited into iFlip's joint venture program. It was supposed to work like this. Participants would have to provide some upfront capital. iFlip would find the property, provide access to the lender, and oversee the renovation. Then iFlip would sell the home for you and take 30% of the total profit.
You don't have to worry about any of this stuff because they have all of these relationships.
To get financing through iFlip's preferred lender, Ramo Bay told the women his name had to be on their loan.
Being in real estate, it's not something that's unheard of if you don't have a track record of doing, fix and flips with lenders.
At closing, each woman hired iFlip's preferred real estate attorney, Alex Ranja, to represent them. But Tatiana says Ranja never showed up at her closing. They didn't know it yet, but in hindsight, this is where they say things went terribly wrong. Buried in the hundreds of pages of documents they signed during closing were 4 sentences in the loan agreement that put them on the hook for Ramo Bay's debts. It was part of a cross-default and collateralization clause that meant if Ramo went delinquent on any of his own loans, the lender would charge what Ramo owed to the loans he held with other iFlip participants, like Amira and Tatiana.
And Ramo had several past due balances.
The women's loan documents show they were charged thousands in cross-interest fees, all transferred from Ramo's delinquent loans.
This was never about flipping property. This was about taking loans out to pay a debt that didn't belong to us.
The loans then went on to fail. They were never written to succeed. They were predatory loans.
Again, when you get out of your game, get into somebody else's game, you become fair game. So many people prior to 2008 wanted to get into home flipping. So many people wanted to be real estate investors, and it was set up perfectly because we had the stock market crash. So people were not feeling good about having their money in the stock market, and they pulled it out and they stuck it into real estate. And when I saw neighbors on my street asking me how to get into flipping that had no idea what they were doing, no construction background, no real estate knowledge whatsoever, I knew it was going to end badly.
filed by both women say iFlip lured them into a real estate investment Ponzi scheme, and the lender and real estate attorney were in on it.
So instead of you getting the money to pay the contractors and renovate the home, what was happening with it?
We have no idea where the money is.
How much are we talking about here?
I have lost $169,000. I'm sorry.
We are at risk of losing over $200,000.
Our desire was to elevate the Black community, rebuild and redevelop our neighborhoods.
And the Woodlawn community Ramo and Michelle claim they wanted to revitalize now has 2 more vacant and decaying homes dotting its landscape.
So this property has been this way since 2022.
Sandra Robinson lives next to the home Amira was never able to finish renovating.
It's an eyesore. I hope something gets to be done.
It's disgusting that this is 2 years later and we have no answer. We have more questions than answers.
We found at least 7 iFlip investment properties, including Tatiana's, are currently in foreclosure. In an email, Ramo Bey tells us he and his clients were a victim of predatory lending, and the cross-collateralization policy was never disclosed or explained to him at closing.
They had an attorney on the books. How can you say that you were a victim of predatory lending? I mean, if you have an attorney, I mean, they were cross-collateralizing. If people are investing money into something, and I'm not an attorney, and I would be interested to find out more about this. This happened a year ago. We were still in the height of all of this madness, and so many investors, I mean, who knows? They may have started with the best intentions. I have no idea. But what happens is people get into debt. They start funding things. They have these great ideas. But like I said, that flipper that we heard from that said he's losing money, spending $4,000 every single month, he fell prey probably to another one of these types of programs that said that you can make a ton of money flipping houses. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. All right, guys, there you have it. Thanks for watching. Get my Todd Simple Home Buy course so you don't fall prey or victim to what you're seeing here. I mean, that's craziness to me. Out of everything that we watched today, probably 100% of it, actually, even that news story that we just watched, could have been avoidable. Keep your emotions in check. Subscribe to our channel. Like the video if you got something out of it. And share our channel with your family and friends. That's your to-do list. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.